I'm here with day 6 of our Minimalist Homeschool Challenge to get our homeschool streamlined for November, December, and January. And if you've made it this far, congratulations. I hope you're already feeling prepared and calm and content with what you have planned and feeling like, you can handle this. This is going to be easy peasy for the next 3 months. So leave me comments and questions. If you've gotten up to this point, you may have accumulated some questions or comments, so I will, I'm happy to help however I can. So today we're going to look at our lesson plans. So it doesn't matter whether you need to create new lesson plans now, if for some reason you're in between quarters or semesters and you want to create new lesson plans. Maybe you're scrapping your old way and you're going minimalist from this day forward. And then that's awesome also. But if you already have your lesson plans, that's awesome too. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to look at those lesson plans that you already have, and you're going to make sure that they suit that atmosphere that you wanted back earlier in the challenge. You thought about some things that you really wanted for your homeschool this season. So make sure your lesson plans suit that. And then you're going to make sure that nothing has crept in that is not a high priority. So when you looked at your goals and your values, not even your values so much, but your goals for each child, specifically for this season, you want to make sure that your lessons are working directly for those goals. And you don't want all that extra thrown in. And that's because life gives the extra, right? So you can be confident that you have chosen exactly what your kids need and exactly what your kids love right now, and know that life will provide the extra if you just allow the space for all of that impromptu learning and fun and relaxation. Then your kids are going to be just fine. So be confident in what you've chosen. When you're looking through your lesson plans, do not feel the need to add extras just because you can. There's a ton of things you can add, but in minimalist homeschooling, we're going to stick with what is most valuable and what is most loved, so that you have the space to do all of that impromptu stuff, and you have the space to breathe, and you have the space to enjoy your kids. So all right, so you're going to make sure that they match your atmosphere. You're going to make sure that they match your goals. And I want to be clear also that minimalist homeschooling is not about like stripping down your kids' education so that you feel like you're depriving them of all of these cool like dioramas and projects and field trips that everybody else is doing. And I've stripped mine bare, and so they're not going to experience all those awesome things. Like, no, that's not it at all. In fact, the difference is you're actually going to be awesome, right? So instead of doing it all, you're doing awesome, right? So it's so much better to be awesome than to be it all. Because when you're being it all, you're spread too thin and you can't be awesome. So we're so used to thinking that we aren't awesome unless we're doing it all. And it's actually contradictory to the way it actually works. If you're trying to do it all, you're sabotaging yourself from being awesome. I mean, that's just the way it is. So instead of feeling like, you have to fit everything in, think about it this way. You're choosing to be awesome. Right? So I don't know what your kids need. I don't know what your kids love, but you do. You know what they need and you know what they love, and you can be awesome at those things and give them a hugely valuable education, right? So you can have the space to focus on those most important things and those most loved things, and you can make those things awesome instead of rushing through them, instead of being a taskmaster that has to check all the things off the list. You can do those most important things really, really well. Okay, so as you're going through this and you feel like your lesson plan, hopefully it feels a little sparser than it has in the past. And that's a great thing, because now you have the room and the space to actually do those things great. Okay, so For any of those, I know we have some people here who are newer to this minimalist homeschooling concept, and I just want to reassure you at this point, when it's so tempting to fill up your schedule with all of the things, that it's so much better to be awesome. Don't be it all. Just be awesome. Okay? So, and it's easier to be awesome. I'm telling you, it's so much easier to be awesome than to be it all. Okay. So there are a few other things I want you to keep in mind when you're looking over your lesson plans. I hesitate to show you mine because there are so many different ways to homeschool, and I don't want anyone to look at mine and think, okay, that's the best way to do it, right? So this is the best for my particular children, our situation, our values, all of those things. But I will give you an example, just because the first thing I'm going to tell you is you're going to go back to that original day when you put everything on your calendar, right? So I have my November here. And you are going to count how many days you honestly have to homeschool during November, December, and January. If it's a half day, count it as only a half day. If it's a to-do day, don't count it for schooling. If it's one of your open days, that can be a schooling day, and that could be a really nice, easy schooling day because you don't have to be anywhere else. So you're literally, like, as I go through here, I can count how many days I have. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we have appointments that day, so probably not that day. 5, 6, 7. Okay, so as I go through, I find that I have about 9 weeks of homeschooling that I can do in November, December, and January. That's just me. That's my situation. So when I do that, there are a couple ways that you can leave some open space in your calendar. So you want to leave like a 20 to 25% contingency time. Don't fill up all of that space to the brim, right? So for me, this is just like a weekly overview for me to sort of keep me on track. And so what I did, if this is 1 week, I left 1 whole day open each week. And what I did is, a lot of times I do all different kinds of schedules. It's sort of like I don't know, I'm like ADHD about formatting things. I don't know. I do it different every time. But I really wanted, in this case, for it to feel like there was open space, and I want to be able to write in what comes up, right? Because we are learning. My 4th grader is going to have that pressing question about something that he has to go research for 2 hours. And my 2nd grader is going to want to know more about some obscure historical fact, right? And I am going to be doing hands-on things with my kindergartner, and I can write those things in. Okay, so I've left open space here. So however you do your lesson plan, make sure you've left 20 to 25% of the honest amount of time you have to school. Leave it open, because some lessons will take longer. Your children will want to expand on some things. You will find other things that you want to watch or read or do, and you want to have the free time to be able to improvise and do those things, okay? Because I know homeschooling moms are awesome at finding, like, the light bulb goes off and like, oh, we should do this, and that would really hit home for them. So they would really love that. And so now you have the space to do those things. And so when I break it down per kid, my kids actually look like this. And so I've listed subjects here. And again, I hesitate to show you this just because you may not format your schooling this way. You may not think about your schooling in terms of subjects. In my state, we have to have 180 days of attendance of school. And I need to somehow account for my children learning for 180 days each year. You need to go by your state requirements, okay? So your lesson planning should somehow reflect what your state requires, and then also reflect what your values and your goals are for your children. But what I do want to point out here is, because he has this day open, and because we only have right, 6 subjects here, I do have space down here, and I have his chores listed out too. And then the last thing I want to say is that you are also going to make space by not using any dates or times on your schedule during this time of year. So if you notice, I just have week 1 here. If you already have your lesson plans laid out by day, this is what we're doing on November 17th, and this is what we're doing on November 20th, and this is what we're doing on the 21st, I would encourage you during this time to ignore those dates and times and instead go into more of like a looping schedule. So if you're not familiar with a looping schedule, it's the idea, a lot of people use it for their sort of enrichment subjects. So, you know, reading, writing, and math tend to take a prominence every day or really frequently. And then what people will do is they'll loop through the other subjects. So they'll say, instead of saying Monday's history, Tuesday is science, Wednesday is art, Thursday is whatever, and Friday is something else, they'll say, here's our order of things, history, science, art, something, whatever else. And they'll do it as time allows. And when they get to the bottom of the list, they go back up to history, and they just keep repeating it. So instead of assigning them to a particular day, it allows a little bit more flexibility throughout the week to do it as time allows. So here's what I'm recommending to you is that during this season, you consider doing the same thing. So my fourth grader will have something that looks like this, and he will highlight as he goes along that he did his math, that he did his writing, that he did his science, that he did history, and he did spelling. And then when he gets to the bottom, he will start up again on the next day. Now, here's the thing. If we get interrupted, he stops where he is, and he picks up where he left off. And so he may get through this list in 3 days, you know, and he may be writing down all these other things that he does in his free time. Or it may take 10 days to get through this, depending on how much we have going on. And so that's okay. So I actually consider this way to accumulate learning, and I think it simulates sort of what goes on in life in general. And this is definitely a time of year where a lot of people are living alongside their homeschooling. And so we accumulate our days and weeks of homeschooling by using a system like this. And so I might encourage you to try that just for this season, see how it works for you. And you can still have your set times for schooling. So I'm not saying that you totally throw your whole schedule out the window. If you still start school at 9 o'clock typically and end for lunch for an hour and then do chores, by all means, keep that routine. But if a day comes up where you want to go do a service project, where you realize you really need to clean the house before your mother-in-law comes, if you realize something else needs to happen, then you get as much done as you can on your lesson plan, and tomorrow or the next day when schooling starts again, you pick up where you left off. You don't feel like you're so to say behind, because first of all, you've only scheduled 75 to 80% of your time. You've left open space for life, right? And for sort of independent learning and all of those great things, and last minute projects and last minute ideas and field trips and life skills, all of those things that we all know are so valuable but may not get planned out in advance. So you end up not feeling so much like you're behind if you didn't finish Monday's work on Monday. If you use this more of a cumulative schedule, or a looping schedule is what a lot of people call it. And so I guess it's a little bit more elaborate looping schedule, right? So we work through our day's work and stop when we need to stop, keep going if we can keep going. And that's how we learn. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to just go over it really quickly. Review your lessons and make sure they're consistent with your goals. Make sure they're consistent with the atmosphere that you want. Make sure nothing extra has crept in. Trust that you are going to be awesome at what you've chosen and that life will provide all of the extra. Okay, so you're going to count the actual days that you have available to school, and you're going to modify your lesson plan to only fit into that realistic amount of time that you have, right? And if you can only school for a half day, count it as a half day. Okay, so you might say this week I have 2.5 days, next week I have 3.5 days, so that's a total of 6 days for those 2 weeks. Okay, so, or I'm sorry, 7 days, no, 6 days is right, I got that. Okay, so, and then you're going to make space in 2 ways. First of all, you're going to try to fill up that time only 75 or 80%. And second of all, you're going to consider putting your lessons plans on more of like a looping or an accumulative list type schedule. where you are gradually going through the days. And again, meet whatever state or national requirements you have. That should also be a guiding principle for your lesson plans. Let me know in the comments what you think of this and how it's going for you. And guys, you only have one more day. At this point, when you finish this, I know I feel already like, I got this, you know, so what's the next thing? I can move on and now shift my attention to the next thing and being awesome at the next best thing, instead of doing it all. So I hope that you're feeling awesome today. I hope that this is a good week for you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.